Welcome to Social Influence Lesson 5, Conformity to Social Roles and Zimbardo's Research. My name is Nick Redshaw and I have over 16 years experience of teaching A-level psychology. I'm also co-author of the highly successful Independent Learner series of student workbooks that's available on Amazon. Conformity to social roles. Having looked at why people conform to the social influence of the majority within a group, this section will look at why people may behave in certain ways depending on their position in society and what is expected of them. The term social roles refers to roles each of us play within various social groups, for example, teacher or police officer. These social roles have an expectation regarding the appropriate behaviour within each role. So the first question is, think about the role of a police officer. Outline how you would expect a police officer to behave and dress when on duty. This is for 2 marks. You may want to pause the video at this point. Okay, welcome back. This question is worth 2 marks of AO2. And for 2 marks, the mark scheme says, for a clear explanation. For example, a police officer is working for the authority. He or she should dress appropriately, i.e. in a police uniform or smart civilian clothing. They should be polite but firm and respect people's individuality. They should always act fairly and appropriately. Moving on. What you've written is probably the same as everyone else in the class. How a police officer behaves when they are off duty would be quite different. Therefore, the behaviour conforms to the social expectations of society. According to Festinger, Pepitone and Newcomb, 1952, this conformity to social roles can lead to de-individuation, where an individual loses their personal identity and acts as one with the group or crowd. In doing this, they become anonymous. According to Zimbardo, 1969, this de-individuation can lead to negative behaviour, as people feel less accountable because being in a crowd reduces the likelihood of being identified, and lower self-awareness makes people more likely to follow others. We will now look at Zimbardo's research. Zimbardo's 1973 study of conformity in the Stanford prison experiment. The aim. Zimbardo, 1973, was interested in seeing whether people conformed and obeyed because it was part of their personality, or whether it was due to situational factors. The procedure. A controlled observation. Participants comprised of 24 male American undergraduates who volunteered to take part and were randomly allocated to the role of either prisoner or guard. The experiment was made as realistic as possible. The prisoners were arrested at their homes and taken to a police station before being transferred to Stanford County Prison. Once at the mock prison, they were stripped naked, deloused, issued with the prison uniform and given an ID number instead of their name. The guards were all issued with identical uniforms, which included dark glasses and a given set of rules, which they were asked to enforce to maintain a reasonable degree of order. The interaction between prisoners and guards' mood state, self-perception, and coping behaviour were observed as indicators of the degree of conformity to their given roles. Data was collected via videotape, audio tape, direct observation, questionnaires, and interviews. The results. Zimbardo found an extremely high level of conformity to social rules in both the guards and the prisoners. The guards conformed to a sadistic role, e.g., they readily issued punishments for prisoners' misbehaviour, and their aggression was out of proportion to the threat to the prison order posed by the prisoners, who, after some initial resistance, became passive, excessively obedient, showed flattened mood, and distorted self-perception. Some prisoners conformed to the role by becoming sick, and 5 prisoners had to be released early because of extreme emotional disturbance. Further evidence of prisoner conformity was that 5 experienced a parole board. The study had to be stopped on the 6th day instead of running for 2 weeks as planned because of the extreme behaviour of the guards. Conclusions. Zimbardo concluded that situational factors do have an effect on conformity to social roles. If you're using one of our workbooks, or your teacher has downloaded our workbook from TESS, you can complete the following tasks in the spaces provided. If not, on a blank piece of paper, have a go at these questions. Zimbardo took part in the Stanford prison experiment. Name the type of observation technique used by Zimbardo in his controlled observation, and outline one possible problem with using this type of observation. You may want to pause the video at this point in order to complete your answer. Okay, welcome back. The mark scheme says 2 marks for naming the type of observation and explaining one problem with using this type of observation. So simply, Zimbardo took part in his own observation, and therefore the participants and the students knew he was taking part. So, because he took part in his own observation, it was a participant observation. Because the students knew he was taking part, it was an overt participant observation as opposed to a covert. The problem with this type of observation is that the researcher needs to remain objective, but you run the risk of getting carried away with the situation if you take part in the observation. i.e., Zimbardo not letting prisoners leave showed that he'd crossed the line from being objective. Okay, you now need to have a go at this next question. Give one advantage and one disadvantage of using a controlled observation in the context of this study. You may want to pause the video at this point. Okay, this question is worth 4 marks of AO3. The mark scheme says up to 2 marks for the outline of each strength and weakness, and a further 2 marks for elaboration and linking them to the research. So a lot of students will just simply give an advantage and a disadvantage of observations. However, to get the full 4 marks, you need to link it to the research. So one advantage of a controlled observation in the Zimbardo study is that Zimbardo carried out personality tests on the participants and only chose the emotionally stable individuals. Therefore, Zimbardo could conclude that any conformity to social roles was due to situational and not dispositional factors. One disadvantage is that demand characteristics are a problem, as Banuzzi and Mahavadi in 1975 claimed the prisoners were only play acting rather than generally conforming to their roles. Therefore, the findings may lack validity. Okay? You should now have a go at the next question. Although the participants showed public conformity, many reported afterwards that they felt that they had acted out of character, and so there was no lasting change in private opinion. Further personality tests indicated no significant differences between the guards and the prisoners' personalities. Choose the most appropriate type of social influence displayed here. Remember, this is types, not explanations. Is it compliance or internalization for 1 mark? Okay, hopefully you said compliance. And if you'd now like to have a go at the final question. Identify the behavioural categories Zimbardo used as indicators of the degree of conformity to their given roles, for 3 marks. This is 3 marks of AO3. You may want to pause the video at this point in order to answer the question. Okay, welcome back. There are 3 marks on the mark scheme, up to 2 marks for naming appropriate behavioural categories and a further mark for an explanation of these categories. So for example, the interaction between prisoners and guards, mood state, self-perception and coping behaviour were used as behavioural categories. For example, how the mood of the prisoners changed, i.e. becoming more passive, was reordered as indicators of the degree of conformity to their given roles. We'll now look at the evaluation. In order to actually write an essay on Zimbardo, to get AO3 6 marks, you'd need to be able to evaluate. So the strengths of Zimbardo's research. The Stanford prison experiment was a controlled observation in which Zimbardo attempted to control for some of the variables. This was done by carrying out personality tests on the participants and only choosing the emotionally stable individuals. Therefore, Zimbardo could conclude that any conformity to social roles was due to situational and not dispositional factors. Participants were allocated to their roles randomly, preventing researcher bias. High levels of control over these variables meant the study had high internal validity. The study was made as realistic as possible, and findings have been applied to real-life prison settings, so it has high external validity. The limitations of Zimbardo's research. There are clear ethical issues with Zimbardo's study due to his involvement as a participant in the study. A prisoner approached him asking to be released, but Zimbardo responded as a prison governor rather than a researcher and refused to allow him to leave. So the right to withdraw is an issue here. In addition, the participants' demeanour changed as they became more and more withdrawn, so protection from harm is also an issue in this study. Demand characteristics are a problem, as Banuzzi and Mohavedi in 1975 claimed the prisoners were only play acting rather than generally conforming to their roles. Therefore, the findings may lack validity. Riker and Haslam in 2006 carried out a partial replication of the Stanford prison experiment. The prisoners did not conform to social roles and in fact took over the prison. Key terms in this unit is situational factors, the role of the environment in influencing behaviour, and dispositional factors, the role of personality factors in influencing behaviour. So I'd like you to attempt this final question of this lesson. Zimbardo's research was carried out following the 1960s reports of brutality by guards in prisons across America. Explain why the study by Riker and Haslam in 2006 reported different results to Zimbardo's study. This is worth 2 marks. And 2 marks of AO3. You may want to pause the video at this point in order to answer the question. Okay, welcome back. This is 2 marks of AO3, and the mark scheme states, for a 2-mark question, 2 marks for a clear explanation of why the study by Riker and Haslam, 2006, reported different results to Zimbardo's research. So simply, temporal validity, remember that from one of the earlier lessons, might be an issue here. Zimbardo's research was carried out in the 1960s, when America was a more conformist society and may not have the same relevance today. As shown by Riker and Haslam's students in the 2006 study, they did not conform to social roles and in fact took over the prison. Okay, that brings us to the end of this lesson. I'll see you for the next lesson.